Yeah, man.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to Guitar Talk. It's great to be with you today. I'm your host, Mike Higgins, and we're going to talk about one of the finest electric guitars ever made. Everybody's played one or owned one at one time or another. It's been recorded on so many hit records you could never list them all, and that would be the Fender Stratocaster. It's just an extraordinary instrument that can do many things and many sounds, and it was brought to us by the late, great Leo Fender, who incidentally never played guitar in his life, but he went on to make some of the finest Strats ever made. And today, we have a special guest with us, and I've worked with him many times throughout the years. He was a multi-instrumentalist, and he plays fluently in jazz, country, rock, and pop. It's great to have today with us John Owen.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome aboard, my friend.
Thank you, Miguel.
And also today, folks, I wanted to point out some of the differences that you'll see between these two Stratocasters. Mine is a reproduction. It's made by the Fender Custom Shop, and this is from their Time Machine series, and I believe it's based on a 1961 original model. And they do a really, really fine job of replicating the sound, feel, and tone of the originals, but there's only one original. And John's been nice enough to reach into his collection today and bring along an original 1964 Stratocaster.
Yes, here it is.
I mean, look at this. It just, you can just feel the mojo coming right out of your TV screen. If you're a guitar player, you know what I'm talking about. We're plugging these in today into a pair of Princeton Reverb amplifiers. John's is a 1970 and mine is a 1969. And they're just a wonderful combination, a Strat and a Princeton. You can pretty much do what you need to with just those items in particular. John, when did you come into possession of this piece?
Well, this I've had for a long time. I'm from the 60s myself, so grew up in the 60s, and I bought it. When I bought it, my father was sort of critical about, you know, the amount of money I had to pay for it, which was a whopping $329.
$329, my friends, for a 64 Stratocaster.
But I prevailed. I said, I'm going to make some money. He said, well, I hope so, because that's a lot of money. But it was my money, and I've had it ever since, and I'm not going to let go of it. So it's going with me when I leave, I think.
Yeah. Now, folks, the Stratocaster has seen a number of changes throughout the years. It still retains its look and its sound throughout all the details that have changed on the Strat. Now, John's is a 64, and 64 and 65 were transitional years for a lot of the features on the Strat. After 65, Fender sold the company to CBS Instruments, and everything after 65 is not quite as valuable. They're still wonderful instruments, and if you've got a 66 you don't want, we'll happily take it off your hands.
Absolutely.
But these particular models are pre-CBS. And here we see the transitional features. This logo is the slightly larger logo as opposed to what was often referred to as the spaghetti logo, which was a little bit smaller. And we see pearl inlays on this particular model as opposed to the clay dot inlays, which you would have seen just a few months earlier. Amazingly, through its life, John has done little to no modifications to this guitar. We do have a brass nut. That's not a big deal, and everybody was putting those on back in the old days. A little bit more sustain, yeah. You do get a little more sustain. It's a brighter sound. But the important stuff is all there. These are the original tuning machines. These are the super sweet sounding original pickups. And it should be noted that in the 60s, Fender changed the polarity of the windings on the pickups. They were always north wound on the 50s models, and they changed the polarity to south wound in the 60s. I don't know if that changed the tone, and I don't know why they did that, but they did do it. They must have found that it maybe helped reduce noise or something along those lines. But that is one of the changes that took place. And the burst on this is exceptional. It's that three-tone burst, and there's a real definitive separation between the black, the red, and then to the yellowish color that you see there, and that's really typical of a 60s burst. And the custom shop all of them that I've seen, they get close, but they don't look like that. Mine doesn't. As you can see on my custom shop model, they didn't bring the black out as far, and there's just less of the red. While it's a nice looking guitar, it doesn't look like that. And the headstocks, the decal on this one is more I guess what you'd call the spaghetti logo. It's the smaller style logo, and of course we have a bone nut on this. I've owned this piece now, I don't know, for a couple of years maybe. This originally came from the collection of blues great Neil Vitullo, and he sold it to me. Thank you for that, my friend. But while it's close, this is the real deal.
Yep.
And John, you changed the back plate on that too. Could you turn that around so the
Yep.
viewers could see that?
Yeah, this is just brass.
Did you keep the original?
I have it at home.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
But as you know, to get the real, the serial number, you have to take this off, and I don't want to do that.
You got to pop the neck and look at the stamp, which he's already done, and we know that this is an original 64. Do you still have the cover for the springs?
I think I do.
Good, good.
Teresa and I are in the process of cleaning out, which is eternal.
Yes.
Now we're both retired, so we got some time
More
to
time to
devote.
play this beautiful instrument.
Yes.
And you can see this just natural wear on this fretboard. They do a process called rollicking now at Fender Custom Shop, where they try to mimic varying degrees of wear and tear. You can buy a Strat that looks like it's been dragged on the back of a truck and beat to death, and you get to pay about $1,500 extra for them to beat your guitar to a pulp to make it look like that. Oh. But this came from John. This is natural wear that comes from decades of playing and performance, and you just can't get that at the custom shop.
No, and we have the usual battle scars here.
Yes.
Here and there, and a couple of chips.
Have you ever dropped it at a gig, or any stories that stand out in your mind?
Not really. I
Good.
don't think I ever dropped it, but yeah, I've chipped it here and there, and some of them I don't recall how they happened, but I'm sure I was there when it happened. So.
Absolutely, it all adds to the mojo of the instrument. And do you typically play out of the Princeton Reverb when you take this guitar to a job?
Yeah, I haven't been using this a lot because of the nature of the music. I've been playing some jazz, and I usually use that full-bodied guitar that we were both familiar with.
Yes.
So no, I haven't really been playing it as much as I want to. I'd love to be playing this all the time.
Absolutely. So what are you up to these days for music performance things? You gigging, or what are you doing?
Teresa and I have been doing some things. We do regular nursing home things. We've been doing them for years, actually.
Excellent.
And we have a few of those that we do. And I've been playing down the Cape. We also do some Celtic gigs around Boston.
Sure.
Busy around St. Patty's Day type of thing.
No question. Yeah.
And for the summertime, I've been working with a group down the Cape called Big Jazz. And I also play with Frank Giasulo, who's a fantastic flute player. And we do a duo down there. We do clubs and functions, that type of stuff.
Right.
And we have an album, too. We have a little album, but...
Wonderful.
That's,
and do you have a website or a Facebook page where folks could find
you can
any
get
of
to
your
us
music?
on Songfolk.
Songfolk. That's where you go if you want to get some of John's music, my friends.
Songfolk.com.
Absolutely. And you don't see people do it much anymore, but most of the folks that I see play solo, myself included, tend to play on acoustic instruments. But there's no reason you can't show up at a gig with a 1964 Stratocaster. Yeah. It's unlikely if you went to a nursing home gig that you'd be mugged and robbed of your Stratocaster as you were leaving the performance. But you can get such a wide variety of sounds out of these. Now this one, my friends, has a 5-way selector switch on it. Back in the old days, you had to kind of wiggle the switch and get it to stick just right between two pickups. So you'd get a sound that's referred to as out of phase, and it would give you kind of a quack sound, a percussive sound to the note. You hear that in a lot of Eric Clapton's early work. things like Layla and some of that early stuff.
Yeah.
That's a very desirable sound. A lot of funk bands and R&B bands love that sound. But then they went to the 5-way switch, which made it easier to get it in there. Do you still have the original switch?
This is a 5-position
So you got a
switch.
5 in there
Yeah,
somewhere along the lines.
So
Makes life easier.
it does indeed. Yeah, I like it a little bit, like you were saying.
And it looks like we've got 2 different screws on the switch, which is a telltale that it was changed at some point.
Yeah, swap over.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, there's vintage people out there, folks, that will pay $200 for a screw if you can prove that it came from 1961 or 63. It's just insanity in the vintage market. But, you know, I doubt we could hear the tonal differences between those, even though there's folks that claim they can. I'd like to meet them.
Yeah.
Well, let's play a little bit more, John, and I'll jam on some chords and just jump right in.
Okay.
Do the autumn leaf thingy.
All right. man.
Yes, indeed, some fine picking. Boy, that guitar, especially in that pickup position, just got the sweetest, sweetest tone. Those pickups really have something special in them, no question about
Yeah,
it.
I don't mess around too much. Once in a while I might use it. We were talking about the Telecasters earlier. They get that bite, high-end, beautiful
Right, they sure
country
do.
rock sound, you know, but this has that round mellowness that, you know, I pretty much stick to that position.
This is just a beautiful, beautiful piece of rosewood too that they used on the fingerboard. I mean, they don't. The access to the woods that were used in those days is gone, and it's not coming back.
Right.
The quality of the rosewoods and the maples back then was so superior to most of the new woods now. You can get good stuff, but you pay quite the premium for a fingerboard that gets anywhere near close to that. It's the same thing we see with the acoustic instruments today. Martins from the old days with Brazilian rosewood on them fetch 5 to 10 times what the other models go for. And the federal government has enacted something called cities now that restricts travel with certain types of rosewoods and things like that on your instruments.
Yeah.
So if you get on an airplane with it, you might find you can't travel with it, or if you get to where you're going, you can't get the instrument back. So buyer beware if you're going to travel with a vintage instrument. And of course, there's no way you'd put that in an overhead luggage container.
I've had
on an
many,
airplane.
many confrontations over that, you know. Probably you have too.
Yeah, traveling with guitars is difficult.
Yeah.
Now, you've got a couple other instruments over there today with us, folks. The other one's a parts caster, a black one that's based on a typical 70s Strat with the larger headstock. What's in that for pickups?
Well, those are new. Those are Duncan. I think Seymour Duncan's.
Who makes some great pickups?
Yeah, I think it's them. Now, maybe it isn't. They made a liar out of myself here. I'm going to have to look at them.
So when you get to if you're going to a gig and you don't want to bring that precious beauty,
I can't even
that's
read
a good
that.
workhorse right there.
Yeah.
Those are Fender noiseless.
Yeah, that's not Duncan's,
Yeah,
no.
those are
Never
the
mind.
new. You get a similar tone without any hum in
Yeah.
the single positions. They did a pretty good job achieving that. That particular pickup was modeled after the original lace sensors that Fender had a contract with through the late 80s and early 90s. And when that ended, they did a design that would achieve the same goal and retain the Fender name.
Right, you can see the
But that's
back
got a
here.
nice looking neck on it, huh? It's got some mojo on it, some good wear.
Very nice, very
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, this was put together. And I got this, as I was saying earlier to you, that so I wouldn't be traveling with this thing because I was
Certainly.
afraid, you know, that something would happen to it, or, you know.
Now tell us about this mad creation
This
over here that's in a Strat style
can
body,
see,
but
yeah.
you'll see that it's not a Stratocaster.
No, we bought that fairly recently. Teresa and I both play mandolin. This is actually an octave mandolin that a man in New York, his name is Soers, I think it's Michael Soers. He he takes a Fender mini Strat and he reworks them a bit, and he has he puts double strings on it, as you know an octave mandolin would have.
Sure.
So it's unique.
Certainly is.
You know, it sort of looks like it's a little, you know, if it's beside this guy here, it rather looks like, you know, you washed this in a trunk. So,
Yeah.
But
So if Jeff Beck were to take up mandolin, he'd likely
he'd
be
want
calling
that.
this guy
He'd
and
want that. Yeah.
getting one of those made up. That's really cool. No doubt about it. I see you've still got all the original bridge components too on the 64.
Yeah, I'm
That's great.
I'm hesitant to do anything about it.
Don't do anything to
yeah.
it. Don't clean them. Don't do anything. Leave it just
Yeah,
like it is.
and I don't use the whammy bar, but I do have it. I
Good,
have the
good.
original, which
Yeah, I noticed you have 5 springs in the back,
Yeah.
which creates the most downward pull and it flattens the bridge.
yeah.
Some artists, I think Robert Cray does this and Clapton might, they put a block behind the bridge so that it literally can't move at all.
I see.
Because as folks know that play a Strat, if you set it up in the floating position, if you break a string, for example, game's over.
Yeah.
You have to put the guitar down and grab a spare. You can't get your way through the tune because the whole thing's out of tune now because the tension, the relationship has changed, and now the bridge is floating differently. But when you have it stationary and blocked off, if you broke a string, the rest of the strings would remain in tune. And some guy just never got into the whole vibrato arm thing anyway, so they just block it off. There's arguments that it gets better sustained when it's flat to the body. There's more string vibration transferring, but you know,
That's personal.
You get into some good, you know, personal choices there. Yeah. I like it to float just a tiny bit, not a lot.
Yeah.
If you know how to set these up properly, which I don't, you can make it so you can use this moderately and it just doesn't go out of tune. I had mentioned my friend Neil Vitullo earlier, and I know Duke Robillard is a master at setting these up, and so is Neil. He just doesn't let everybody know that, so they don't start knocking on his door for setups. But he really is an expert. I've seen him take the neck off the guitar 5 minutes before showtime.
Wow.
And do a truss rod adjustment, slap it back on, tweak everything, and be good to go.
Yeah.
I'd be a nervous wreck. I could never try that.
No, I can't.
Yeah.
I'm getting anxious thinking about that.
Absolutely. So this has been with you since the 60s?
It's yes. Myself and this guitar grew up in the 60s. So.
Did you buy it at a music store or from a private party?
I bought it back in the day. There was a music store in Boston called Jack's Music.
I remember Jack's, yes.
Down Park Square.
Sure.
I don't know if you're, yeah, that was kind of like the place to be. There was different jazz people.
It was legendary.
It was legendary, yeah.
Yes.
You never knew who was going to be in there. So, you know, as a kid, you go in and hope and see somebody that's famous. But
I bought an amplifier from Jack's around 1974 or so. I had a vintage Guild Starfire.
Cool guitar.
And I wanted a Strat, and I had located one. I had a 60s Strat that I got from a local musician named Ron Arruda, who played in a band called LBJ and the Soul Royalties, for all you Tauntonians out there that might remember those guys.
LBJ, I remember him.
And yeah, different guy though. But I got it from Ron for about $118, I think it was. That's all I had in my wallet. And that's all. That was the most money I'd ever had at one time back then.
And he went for it, yeah.
And he grabbed it, and I kept that guitar for a long time. But I traded the Guild to Jack for a Tweed amplifier.
Whoa!
So I had a nice setup there for a while, and you know, unfortunately, back then we didn't know what this equipment was worth, and I didn't have the wisdom that John did to keep that Stratocaster, and because they don't make them like that anymore, as the saying goes.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we pick a little, John?
All right.
Folks, thank you for being with us. Guitar Talk. We like to present you with original American instruments, different styles of playing and performance. If you've got an instrument that you think's unique, reach out to me. I'd love to talk about it with you. Maybe we'll get you on the show. Thanks for viewing today, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you all. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me on too, Mike. I appreciate
John,
it.
it's been a treat.
Yeah.
It's been a treat. Let's do a little blues in B flat.
B flat.